Get up. Let's go. It's time to leave here. Well, that's the way today's lesson ends. So first, let's get started from the beginning. Hi, I'm Gary, and you're watching 7 Minutes in the Word. We've been studying Jesus' farewell conversation with his disciples, which began back in John the 13th chapter. Today we will be looking at John 14, verses 25 through 31. These verses bring to an end the upper room portion of this farewell conversation and the major themes that we have been studying the past several weeks. The conversation will continue in chapters 15 through 16 as Jesus and his disciples make their way from the upper room to the Garden of Gethsemane. And then Jesus will pray his pastoral prayer in chapter 17. Jesus began the evening by teaching his disciples about being a servant to others, and telling them that by serving one another, they would be showing their love for each other. He also told them that the world would recognize them as his disciples if they loved each other. He told them he was going away. He told them that he and the Father were one. He told them that proof of a disciple's love for him was that they would obey his commandments. He told them that if they loved him, the Father would love them. And he told them that the Father would send them the Holy Spirit, and they would never be alone. Today, we turn to John the 14th chapter, verses 25 through 31, and we will begin our study with verses 25 and 26. These things I have spoken to you while I am still with you. But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things, and bring to your remembrance all that I have said to you. Now, Jesus knew that his disciples may not remember all that he had said to them that night. And that's why he repeated each point at least 3 times. He considered it very important for them to understand the love relationship between them, him, and the Father. And in spite of the events that were soon to transpire, Jesus wanted his disciples to not despair and to know that they were loved and that the Spirit would be with them. But it was also concerning to him that they still did not seem to completely understand what he was telling them. So, in verse 26, Jesus told them that the Holy Spirit would teach them all things which Jesus had told them that they did not understand. The Holy Spirit would lead them to understand. And not only the things that Jesus had just said to them, but the Holy Spirit would remind them of everything that Jesus had said to them. Then in verse 27, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." Jesus said that his peace was not like the world's. I may wish you a good day, but I don't have the power to guarantee that you have a good day. Jesus does guarantee the peace that we can have in him. And while we may experience a peaceful time when there is no threat of war, that peace is enforced by the threat of violence. Peace in Jesus is without violence, but instead, his peace is enforced by his love and the love of the Father. Because this peace is guaranteed and is enforced by love, Jesus told disciples that they should not be troubled in their hearts or be afraid. Here at the end of John the 14th chapter, Jesus ends the same way that he began the 14th chapter. In verse 1, he said, "Let not your hearts be troubled." This is consistent with what God has wished for his people through the ages. God told Joshua, Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Continuing in John the 14th chapter with verses 28 and 29, Jesus said, "You heard me say to you, I am going away, and I will come to you. If you love me, you would have rejoiced, because I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you before it takes place, so that when it does take place, you may believe." Now, let's be clear. Jesus probably was not questioning whether or not the disciples loved him, but rather what kind of love they had for him. He is saying that if they selflessly loved him, as he loved them, then they would want whatever was best for him and for themselves. Only by returning to the Father could all that Jesus had come to do be accomplished. It is the Father who sends the Spirit, and it is the Father who gives us salvation. And it was important for the disciples to hear this, so that they would believe Jesus, would believe in Jesus, when these things took place. Well, it was wrap time, at least for this part of the discourse. In verses 30 through 31, Jesus said, "I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming. He has no claim on me, but I do as the Father has commanded, so that the world may know that I love the Father. Rise up. Let's go from here." In the Message translation, it says, "Get up. Let's go. It's time to leave here." Jesus was leaving because Satan was coming. Satan wasn't forcing Jesus to leave. Satan had no power over Jesus. Jesus was leaving to go face Satan. He was going to defeat Satan. What was about to happen may have seemed like the work of Satan to the disciples. They may have mistakenly believed that Satan had won. So it was important for them and us to know before it happened that Jesus gave up his own life on the cross, because the Father had promised long ago that he would redeem mankind. Jesus loved the Father with a selfless love. So Jesus proved his love for the Father by obeying his commands. In verse 31, Jesus essentially said this: "I go to my death because the Father has commanded it. I obey my Father because I love him. It's time for me to leave here." Well, I hope you have enjoyed this study. If you have, please click the like button, and then please come back again next week for another 7 Minutes in the Word. Now I would like to leave you with this thought. Jesus said that if we love him, we will keep his commandments. Jesus demonstrated this kind of love by obeying the Father's commands and by dying on the cross.